Yup, that's me. And you're probably wondering how I got myself into this situation. So, before you rush to the comments to call me a monster or something, let me take you back to where it all started. The beginning. While Fallout 3 isn't exactly known for its sprawling locations, Washington, D.C. being hit pretty hard during that whole World War thing, and being reduced to a state of ruin seen only in a few locations across the Fallout universe. However, traveling northeast, just go kind of to the north I guess, we find an anomaly amongst the capitol wasteland. A defiant and pristine-looking tower, visible from vast distances across the map, occupying an otherwise emptied skyline. This place, colloquially known as Tenpenny Tower, houses some of the wasteland's wealthiest occupants. And, approaching the structure's main gates, we find the security to be consistent with this fact. We also find this scaly fella here, demanding, without any pretense of politeness, to be let in. The gate's main guard, a man who we'll soon find to be also in charge of the complex's defensive and offensive capabilities, pretty sharply rebukes the ghoul, demanding the zombie, as he calls him, vacate the premise. The two mutually threaten each other before the ghoul departs, refusing to speak with us as he goes. Well, that was strange, but last time I checked I still had all my skin. We might as well give it a shot. We ring the intercom and are immediately shouted at to vacate the premise, the security chief presuming us to be the wayward ghoul from just moments prior. We crack back at the man, utilizing some of that oh-so-clever Todd writing, and assure him we are in fact a mostly flesh-and-blood human being. So, open up. He still won't really budge on the whole gate situation, and since I loaded an earlier save, leaving Megaton all the way intact, see the last video I guess, I have no real credit to speak of with the Tenpenny staff. What I do have, though, is hard liquid currency from being a dirty thief, robbing random NPCs I come across, making use of a high sneak and repair skill to basically run a black market scrapper build. I will roleplay in this game if it's the last thing I do. Jingling our person to the microphone a bit, we find the prospect of a donation to be exactly what the chief here is looking for. He instructs us to slide our caps under the door, or at least I imagine he does, as they're removed before we even get inside, and peels open Tenpenny's sturdy gates. Making our way through, we find ourselves in a wide and fully realized private courtyard, the buffer zone wrapping around the building's exterior and hosting several rest areas for the tower's many guards. We don't get much time to look around, however, the whole incident with the ghoul still sticking out to us and naturally forcing us to poke around a bit more than we probably should. First we speak to the chief, who isn't too shy about expressing his absolute distaste for the highly irradiated, including the man we saw loitering around the complex, who happens to go by the name of Roy Phillips. You see, Roy has been sort of harassing the residents of Tenpenny, insisting, in a rather violent way at times, that he and his compatriots be allowed residence within the massive building. Now, I realize ghouls don't make the worst of neighbors, and if I could gob a little time off in the bar and bring them down here, I might just be able to change some hearts and minds, but I sympathize with not wanting Roy specifically within their community. Aside from a few not-so-idle threats, Roy has also been up to some concerning stuff in the nearby and cut-off metro tunnels. Apparently raising some sort of a ghoul army, the chief here believing it for the purposes of an eventual attack on the tower. Taking this into consideration, but also not entirely trusting this misappropriated Oblivion NPC, we feign as if we've taken on packs upon packs of the creatures, assuring the skeptical man that we will, in fact, while out on those ghouls just for him. Despite being sort of overly intense throughout our entire conversation, the chief does, to his credit, equip us with a few ghoul-fighting armaments, clearly not really wanting us to perish or get too in over our heads. And, because we can, we take this small act of kindness and tell the man to double it, hitting him with and passing a speech check, allowing us a bit more ammo and a nice stipend of caps for our trouble. This will be the first of many times my early investment in the skill pays off, and perhaps one of the most speech-heavy quests in the game, if you play it right. It's gonna be late soon, though, and ghoul hunting is best done under the smile of a rising sun. That rhymed. So we set up shop at the tower for a little while and gather a bit more information on this ghoul thing. Despite the whole undead army rumors, Roy didn't seem too close to feral really at all, maybe just a little grumpy. So getting a gauge on the situation seems more than appropriate. After a bit of casual flirting with this lady here, who, despite us being like 17 canonically, I think, proceeds to absolutely talk us up. Susan Lancaster is a bit of an enigma, and relevant to a few other Wasteland adventures, but with Paradise Falls being totally annihilated in this playthrough, I had to for an early loot dump. Her troubles are pretty much abated for this save file, yet far more than slavers she apparently fears, you guessed it, that of ghouls and other assorted mutants. Inquiring, between her questionable attempts at seduction, if we'd be up for the task of breaking into a ghoul nest or two. We, to the surprise and absolute delight of Susan, agree that we'd likely be up for the task, again sort of embellishing our own experience with the art of ghoul hunting. Susan sends us on our way, and leaving us to explore the rest of the lobby. Eventually, we stumble into this little boutique here, finding this little old lady, Mrs. Chang. We speak to the fairer Chang. She greets us as a new face, asking us to look out for Mr. Chang, who she is apparently avoiding at the moment. We ask why she isn't honoring the man, Game's words, not mine, in her relationship, and she replies in a rather humorous, but clearly exasperated manner. She explains that Mr. Chang, in his older years, has come to believe himself a leader of an apparent building-wide committee, and with the recent appearance of Roy and his band of melted peoples, this committee, Mr. Chang alone, has been focused solely on the removal of these perceived monsters. Mrs. Chang isn't the biggest fan of ghouls herself, don't get her wrong, but she clearly doesn't see it as the end-all be-all of her small community, just wanting the issue addressed so her husband will, shut up for like 5 minutes. We assure her we got a handle on the situation, sort of, and we will speak to Mr. Chang in order to calm his nerves as well. In an adjacent lounge, just across from the custom shop, we find Mr. Chang finishing up a drink. The old man is friendly enough, along with being every bit as delusional as his wife described him to be, but his fears aren't entirely unfounded. He seems to have a genuine care for the community he lives in. While this may come across as a bit naive upon first glance, it appears his interests lie less in power and more in just helping those around him. We let him know our admiration of this quality, also letting him know that we, at least for the time being, are in service to his people. We also speak to the man Mr. Chang was sharing his drink with, one Michael Hawthorne. Hawthorne comes across a lot less humble than the Changs, and probably a lot less friendly than Lancaster, but all the same, he's charming in his own way. He gives off the tone of a man trying to forget, working his way into the tower and electing to drink the trauma of the wasteland away. We listen to the same old zombie song and dance, get the man another drink to calm his nerves, and before finally venturing into the metro tunnels, head upstairs to meet the final and probably most thoughtful resident of Tenpenny. This is Herbert Daring Dashwood, a rather famous, not really to us, figure amongst the capital wasteland and wider Commonwealth. In his younger days, Herb here was considered to be quite the hero, traveling around, helping fellow wastelanders, and making a name for himself off of his several dangerous exploits. Many of which, if we choose to tune into Galaxy News Radio, are catalogued across the airways in a series of condensed and, maybe just a little bit, inflated narratives. Herbert himself comes across as a rather humble man, explaining that through his fellow residents can be a bit uppity, he's found Tenpenny a welcoming and pretty nice place to spend a retirement. He actually broaches the subject of ghouls first, asking if we've ever encountered one. We're not too sure where he's going with this, so we hold our cards a little close, wanting the man to expose his bias before describing our own plan. To my surprise, Dashwood here has a pretty measured perspective on those more irradiated than himself, even taking up with one as his sidekick and manservant in another life. Very comic bookish, and building a close, as he describes it, friendship with him. He's well aware of the ghouls outside. By his estimation, their mini-siege soon to become full-blown as tensions mount. He recommends, if we can avoid the ferals, speaking with the group leader, the guy we saw loitering outside the building earlier, and coming to a sort of resolution with him. I'd prefer this too, honestly. However, if the rumors of ghoul hoarding turn out to be true, then compromise really isn't going to cut it. In my mind, that's, a super weapon. Regardless of if the proprietors happen to be sunburnt and, unwell. We bid farewell to Herb, him asking us to keep a lookout for his old pal amongst the wider wasteland, and we head off. Stepping outside, day appears to be dawning, the early morning twilight providing us cover as we move to the nearby subway tunnels. Just outside the underground complex's entrance, we already find evidence of feral activity, when we are, just straight up attacked by a couple of them. The Chinese rifle, along with my dump of a small arms skill, allow me free reign over the bumbling corpses. Inside, it's more of the same. The tunnels in Fallout 3, while perhaps being the most criticized aspect of the game when it was first released, have become pretty famous and, beloved for just how creepy they can be. The ghouls here are also textured of JPEGs or even PNGs, of raw meat, adding to the overall atmosphere of the place. Seriously, look it up. We fought our way through the more congested areas, believing ourselves to be taking down the rumored army as we go, eventually coming out here at a rundown and, until very recently, abandoned train platform. Out in the open, we're immediately spotted by Death Race 2000 here. His name is Michael Masters, and he's surprised to see us, calling for us to scale the steps and have a word with him. He starts off by asking why we're even down here, assuming us to be lost or, at the very least, suffering through a bout of Kim-fueled insanity. We straight up tell him that we've been contracted to take his life. Masters hits us with and we explain that we're not gonna just open up on him or anything, mostly because we need to know where Roy is first. Realizing if it's not me now, then the next time will probably be someone with a lot less self-control, Mike directs us to Roy, explaining that, while he holds agency of his own, his loyalties lie with the head ghoul and his plans. Heading further down the tunnel and past this choke point, we find Roy fast asleep. His or his wife, or his assistant, I think she's just a friend, honestly, occupies a bed not too far away. Like with Mike, I prefer to jump straight to the point with Roy here, telling him, in order to gauge his temper, that we took out a decent amount of ferals on our way in. Roy, while not exactly impressed, he tells us as much, doesn't care either. The supposed army apparently coming down to nothing more than speculation amongst an already group of paranoid busybodies. Well, I guess that's good. Could they maybe leave those busybodies alone now? The answer is, unequivocally, no. He gives us, I'm sorry, the same song and dance every single Wastelander gives us when they don't get their way, even explaining that, while equality is important to him, that the world operates upon a take-it-and-hold-it system, where if you can't defend your claims, you're not entitled to anything in the first place. Not only is it a no, but Roy plans to, using the same war philosophy, within a few weeks, attack the tower with his growing and expanding ghoul army. He does in fact have a ghoul army, and they're pretty much ready to go. The bums we took out coming in simply just being there, I guess. Probably either old members of this odd covenant or just hangers-on from the tunnel's pre-Roy era. I don't know. I explained to Roy that I'm not really prepared to let him do this. While I can accept and understand a claim of persecution in this instance, I will not allow him to persecute the people of Tenpenny in return, even explaining that he, from my perspective, is really no better than Tenpenny himself. Phillips, to his current credit, takes this pretty well, telling us that he can't see a resolution to all of this without resorting to ultra-violence. In a last play of desperation that I do not think in a million years will work, but it will at least give me enough time to think of something else, we offer to talk to the head honcho, Alistair Tenpenny, ourselves. Roy finds this prospect pretty humorous, but allows us to carry on, probably just wanting the validation and justification of rejection. But if we do fail, or just feel like letting a bunch of ghouls kill a bunch of grandparents for no reason, then we could always head down to the building's basement. I guess in the old world, Tenpenny Tower was some sort of luxury hotel. The metro tunnel is designed to intersect beneath the building in order to allow guests of great stature easy access in the event of their visit. Whatever. Good enough for me. Time to get to work. Before this, we have a word with this lovely lady here, Bessie Lynn. Bessie is a very sweet person, more concerned about our safety than anything else upon realizing a human has entered her residence. We, for some reason, I don't know why I did this, also tell her we've been hired to kill the group. She doesn't like that, not one bit. We assure her, after a little bit of freaking out, like with Masters, that we don't really roll like that, and aside from the ghoul collection Roy has apparently started in the back, don't really wish to change anything about their current way of life. She laughs at herself, not really having much else to say, and after instructing us to speak with Roy, lays back down for a long ghoul nap. We could head out now, but as I stated earlier, I'm not 100% on the whole convincing Tenpenny thing. Not that I'll really let it influence my decision one way or the other. I'm not killing the Changs or Dashwood. But, in the case Roy wants to get a little antsy, I feel like disabling his secret weapon is only appropriate. We fail at this. First, I got hopelessly lost in a game I've played on and off for 15 years, and kept going in circles. Then, upon finding the sealed door where the ghouls were actually being kept, was unable to find exactly where it was activated. Mike, apparently a bit of an insomniac himself, eventually catches me up here and asks what I think I'm doing. We give a lame excuse, he hits us with some pretty wise wisdom, and we give up the hunt, deciding that brevity will have to be the main tactic of the day. And so we're off, arriving back at the tower as its denizens begin their morning routines, making our way up to the headquarters of one Alistair Tenpenny. Tenpenny is pretty cagey, refusing really to elaborate on what makes him, and preferring to answer my questions with brief, snobbish witticisms. I visualize Mrs. Chang's sweet old face, resisting the urge to find out just where that basement could be, and press on with my mission. Can Roy and his melted friends stay here? Pretty please. Tenpenny, while not jazzed on the idea, isn't, to my surprise, exactly opposed to it either. It's mainly, as he explains, a few choice guests that are still holding the process back, and that, while he isn't really familiar with ghouls, he understands that their caps spend the same as anyone else's. He tells us that, if we can use our powers of persuasion and influation, which is a word I made up for this video, he'll have no problem accepting a few more bodies under his roof. But, they'll have to pay like everyone else. You got it, dude. And so, the hunt for common decency begins. And it starts right here, with us letting Chief Gustavo know that we will, in fact, be taking a different course of action than previously expected, and will also be keeping his caps at the same time. Gustavo doesn't like ghouls, and he doesn't really take the whole Tenpenny or even Michael Jordan approach to business. He just straight up reviles them. But he is also a working man who isn't about to give up probably one of the cozier jobs in the wasteland. He assures us, despite his own reservations, that if Tenpenny does clear it, he will not interfere or make life unpleasant for the tower's new occupants. Great. Now, where is my good friend Mr. Chang? There he is. Look at the old boy, pride of the wastes. Mr. Chang, let's be honest, isn't exactly entirely there, at least not in a way that really lends itself to understanding the present stakes. It doesn't take much pressing, like it will with a few other residents, or even speech in general to convince our pal here that a few ghouls really wouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, on the prowl for the better half of the Chang couple, we find ourselves in these two little boutique shops. Both their cashiers actually present at this hour. First is a woman named Lydia Montenegro, Herzegovina, Bosnia, Czechoslovakia. Anyway, Lydia Balkans here is a roller coaster ride of a lady, initially greeting us in a rather warm, diplomatic way, but then, upon our asking of an innocuous question, calling our taste trash and essentially spitting in our face. Right, so you're gonna have some ghoul neighbors soon? This information just is too much for the poor lady to handle. I don't know, she's kind of the worst. I'm glad I hadn't met her up till this point, as the basement option looks more attractive with each personal insult and weird sarcastic comment she makes. Our speech is aight, not the best, not the worst, so we're able to just slip in on a percentage and check this lady straight out of the building. I'm serious. Apparently she's just gonna leave, and she's actually going. Okay then, that seems like a bit of an overreaction, but I gotta move on. The second shop experience goes pretty similar. The cashier man seeming utterly checked out and lost in the sauce until the mention of ghouls. Becoming uppity at first, yet eventually succumbing to the mounting pressures of that speech skill. He doesn't actually leave this time, though. I don't know, maybe Susie Check just needed some of that fresh wasteland air. Next is Mrs. Chang, finally. She, while definitely lucid, isn't as immediately receptive to our proposal as her husband. Fear dictates much of how this poor old lady has lived her life up until now, and this happens to be really no different. We assure her that the ghouls aren't going to attack or just turn up here aggressive, and that they're actually pretty easy to chat with, rotten flesh or not. Probably one of the more open-minded old women who really just wants safety for herself and her husband. She agrees and lets us know that she'll even speak with Tenpenny, allowing the old miser consensus on the building's overall attitude. We got 3 or 4 more people left, so let's speedrun it. Michael, he's a drunk. He doesn't care. He thought ghouls could reproduce and subsisted off the flesh of their offspring. He's fine with them moving in ultimately. They just can't eat any babies without express council permission. Okay, next. We have this lady again. She puts on a brave face when she first sees us, but soon drops the facade upon our broaching of the whole ghoul subject. She's likely the most opposed resident we've come across. Her opposition and significance to the tower, pretty much making her a deal breaker in the whole thing. This conversation is also probably the most frustrating, whereas I understand the other people probably maybe want to preserve their businesses, and Mr. Chang is just an old coot. She gives us the worst attitude by far. Her and Roy would get along if only she knew. We barely squeak by on our speech check, her likely being the toughest of many found throughout this quest line, and convince her that this is just the way it happens to be now. She's pouty at first, until realizing that she lives in a massive tower and only leaves her room to accost random 17-year-olds anyways. So she'll just stay in another more isolated or kind of penthouse. Okay, whatever. Is this the runaround, Sue? Doesn't matter. Moving on. Next up is by far our shortest convincing yet, mostly because it really isn't convincing at all. This is the tower's local MD, a highly educated man, probably one of the smartest in the game. He has been preparing for our inquiry. Word gets around real fast, I guess. At any rate, instead of opposing us for some moral or even ignorance-based reasoning, the doctor appears quite excited at the prospect of these possibly medically significant residents. Apparently every doctor in the wasteland has a side hustle of studying radiation and its effects. And our boy here is no different. We tell him, if our next couple conversations flow, he may just have the answer to his questions sooner than he thinks. Our last 2 subjects also happen to be a couple, probably the only other distinguished one in the building aside from the highly esteemed Changs. However, unlike the Changs, these 2 don't really come as a package deal, meaning they'll both need their own set of checks and arm twisting to pull them over to the pro-rotting people in the hallway thing. They can be found all over the building, during various times of the day, bickering. Probably the most restlessly programmed, too, in the entire building. Yet, as I've spent an entire day basically interviewing and sometimes extorting a skyscraper full of people, I find them in their suite close to bedtime. First we speak to the man of the, room. He's so whiny. He insists he worked his way in here. I don't even really disbelieve him. Rich people are a bit of a rare commodity in the wasteland, and I can't really imagine how most of these people even got the clothes on their backs, let alone the means to even be in this place. It's why I sympathize with their worries. I'm gonna be honest, I hate Roy. He is truly bullying these people, and putting a swinging pendulum of death over each of their heads in order to achieve his aims is just one of the many ways in which he's been trying to push around others. However, Masters and sweet old Desi Lynn deserve more than the damp, lightless pit that they currently inhabit. I'm doing this for them at the end of the day. We tell the apartment cuck to deal with it, and, well, he does. He doesn't even try to leave. His wife, though a bit more challenging, pretty much falls in line with his way of thinking, but also declares her intentions to leave. And then doesn't. We can find both of them here long after the questline is concluded, so I don't know. Maybe Bethesda programmed them to just be together at all times? You tell me, old kind viewer. Now with this sorted and enough people talked into our Ghoul renovation scheme, we report back to Tenpenny, who doesn't really care, he's just doing tower stuff. And then go back to Roy to let him know the good news. To his credit, and my own surprise, Roy is actually pretty grateful for our efforts. I thought for sure he'd hit me with a not good enough, or whatever, but no, he's genuinely very thankful, and the other two are pretty excited. It's a sweet scene, actually. Roy even gives us a ghoul mask, made to divert and avoid any ferals we may come across in the wasteland. You can also get this mask by helping him invade the tower, but, more Changs, more problems, or whatever. You know what, I kind of feel bad I misjudged Roy. I could get out of here and go back to Megaton, chill in my house that I forgot was even in the game at all. Pretty great addition, and I don't know why they didn't bring it back in New Vegas. I guess the Lucky 38 was close enough. But nah, I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'm gonna check up on my new friends. See if the life of luxury has been as kind to them as it should be. Entering the building, we're unable to find the ghouls at first. Me being worried they got on the way over, or even gunned down by security in some sort of an ambush. But no, after some time we find them here, in Tenpenny's room, sitting on his couch. We ask what gives and where exactly the old man went, and Roy tells us that they had a disagreement and it was sorted out. Yeah, Roy killed him. After everything I did. All the strings I pulled. Even Tenpenny saying, explicitly, he didn't mind the presence of ghouls in his establishment, Roy still just decided to up and kill him. It was about money and wealth this entire time. Never equality. Never even revenge. Just calculated business. And Roy used us. And so, being as though I view him as too dangerous to be left alive, we used the Chinese rifle for its original purpose and put an end to Roy. Masters, unfortunately, flies into a rage at this, his loyalty to his longtime friend and probably exploiter overwhelming him. There's a brief gunfight, I win, and sadly that's that. Bessie Lynn, thankfully, doesn't turn hostile, allowing me to spare her and basically setting her up as the sole benefactor to whatever fortune Tenpenny may have left. Then we leave Tenpenny Tower behind us, growing smaller on the horizon as we put as much distance between ourselves and the mess of humanity and violence hidden behind its walls. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Kind of a sad note to leave it on. My mic has been broken and messed up and, sadly, old. So I haven't been able to do the best of recordings. I made another one probably 2 days ago, but I was under the impression that this mic broke and I was going to have to find my other one, but I didn't have to find the other one. I was just really bad at measuring audio levels, so, figure that out for yourself. New Vegas DLC is coming back soon. I just kind of got burnt out on that game. And my mod menu had to be switched around, and I'm lazy, so I didn't feel like doing that right away. But yeah, that will be coming. Honest Hearts. Yep. Okay.